Welcome to HR Studio Podcast. Through bi-weekly interviews with HR executives, thought leaders, authors, speakers, and trend spotters from the world of HR and beyond, we invite you to listen, learn, and leverage. Welcome to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. HR Studio Podcast is brought to you by A.J. O'Connor Associates, a trusted human capital consulting partner to emerging, mid-market, and world-class organizations. To learn more, visit us at ajoconnor.com.
Welcome to HR Studio Podcast. My name is Kyle O'Connor. I'm your host today. I'm very excited to have René Johnston with me. She is the owner and founder of Employee Engagement Solutions, located in beautiful Washington State. Her organization specializes in improving culture, retention, and profitability for building more engaged teams. She's an author and speaker whose work can be found in various print and online publications. René also serves as a regular columnist for the Spokane Journal of Business, Catalyst Magazine, and an adjunct faculty member of the Lewis Clark State College Business Division. René was selected as a TEDx speaker and holds a master's degree in adult education and human resource development. Perfect for our audience today. She works with businesses in the financial, retail, service, and healthcare industries, as well as nonprofit sector, where she utilizes her business expertise and experience to develop and deliver custom programming that is highly motivational, fast-paced, and interactive. René, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate you coming out.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Great. And I know it's a little bit earlier on the West Coast, so we appreciate you getting up to talk to us today. I think our audience is really going to get a lot out of this interview, and especially with your focus, which has been engagement. So I know I just did an intro. I'd love to hear you start. If there's anything I missed, and just tell us the backstory about your career progression and finding your passion, I would say.
Sure. Well, my career progression and my path, I think, is originally how the question was phrased, that you had sent me ahead of time was, my path in HR. And it's a rather long and winding path. My career number one was in a completely unrelated industry, went to college, got the degree, did something completely different for many, many years. And then I started working with an organization who kept asking me to train their staff on this topic or work with their team on this topic. And I thought, well, I really kind of like this work, and it feels in alignment with my skill set, some of my natural abilities, and thought if I was ever going to make a career out of it, I better legitimize myself. And so that's what drew me back to grad school for the Master's in Adult Ed and Human Resource Development, and then just built my business from there over about the last 17 years, primarily working with businesses in those industry sectors that you've spoken about. And then in the last several years, really narrowing that focus to employee engagement, because it's one of those concepts that I feel really lays a solid foundation for a highly functioning internal team, which of course, as we all know, is something that has to be in place for us to be successful externally.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great, it's never a linear path. It never is. It's kind of like a discovery period. So you talk about your progression and really engagement being the focal point. So thinking about our audience, these rising HR leaders, that's really what we're working on here at HR Studio Podcast. I think I would love to hear, how do you really grow that skill set of growing? Say you took over a team and you're a first time leader. How do you grow a team with engagement? Like, what are some of the strategies that you've seen and used that have been effective?
Absolutely. Well, it starts by the individual, the leader, just having an understanding of the value of employee engagement. And sometimes you don't really you don't recognize and realize the value until you do the work. But just recognizing it as a valuable concept is, a great way to start, and having a passion and embracing lifelong learning as a leader, and then moving into key strategies, which I in the work that I do, work with 5 key strategies for successful employee engagement. And I can go through those if you'd like, just real quickly.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
Okay.
we love that type of stuff here.
Perfect. Those 5 key strategies. The first one is to clarify roles and expectations. And a couple quick points on that. That's something that has to start in the hiring process and with onboarding, from the very beginning, making sure that it is crystal clear. I work with so many organizations who, it just happens and it's not ideal, but, so when was the last time you updated this job description? 2012. That was 7 years ago. Like, oh, it was, wasn't it? They're just like cringeworthy, but it happens. And so that's, part of it. Another key part of clarifying roles and expectations is communicating to the individual that you're bringing on, or the team member at any point, and reminding them perhaps that how their role contributes to the overall success of the organization, right? So they can see and feel and daily experience that connection. And then also with clarifying roles and expectation, making sure that you're bringing someone in who is bought into your organization's mission and your organization's values. So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is to know your team members. And that's the one we're going to dive into in a little more detail later. So I'll just kind of put a pin in that one for now.
Okay.
The third strategy is to provide those team members with the skills, tools, and resources they need to be successful. And those, of course, are going to vary widely from industry to industry and organization to organization, but it might be, the latest technology. It might mean more access to you as a leader. It could be, a variety of different things, more performance feedbacks, things like that. But ensuring that we're offering them ongoing growth and development opportunities, a part of those skills, resources, and training. And then one of the things I am really passionate about, because my background is in adult learning, is that when we do provide them with training and development opportunities, that they're really good, solid training and development opportunities. Many organizations, we tend to move people up the ladder and give them leadership opportunities that come with training and educational responsibilities, that they don't necessarily have that skill set. And so we need to, to do what we can to kind of close that gap up. Have people in place that have an understanding of adult learning principles that are designing and delivering the training, whether it's outsourced or internally. Okay, I got a little long on that one. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's good.
The fourth strategy is to empower our employees, to support and encourage them to be involved. And if we've given them the skills and tools and resources that they need, now we have to give them the freedom to use those skills and resources. And then beyond that, we get to, embrace as a team member, and as a leader, embrace the benefits of having more empowered employees. And the fifth and final strategy, which is the one that supports all 4 of the previous, is to coach and engage with systems. In other words, we have to put some structure in place. We have to systemize this, or as we know, it just won't happen. We get through the course of our day doing the work that's put in front of us, and this type of thing, unless it's really fully integrated into our process, is something that can easily slip through the cracks. We might, as a leader, internally value it, but just the nature of business and the pace we all keep these days, if it's not really firmly structured into our day, our week, our month, it just doesn't happen. So if we systemize it and put some structure in place, then that consistent and effective coaching happens. And the importance of that really can't be overstated. So those are the 5 strategies.
Wow, it's a lot of good content. The systematizing thing is is so important, because what happens is we all get so busy with the day-to-day that this type of work just gets sidelined, unfortunately. And it's the whole proactive versus reactive thing. You want to be proactive as a leader. In order to do that, you need to set intentional time to, coach and grow individuals. And so I like to systematize. Listening to these 5 strategies, I would love for you to just pick one that really stands out to you and really do a deep dive on how would someone that is, a first-time leader take one of these strategies and kind of turnkey it to make the day-to-day successful as a leader, as an HR leader?
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to dive into that strategy number 2, the know your team strategy. They're all beneficial and they all kind of build on one another. But once we, let's say we've done a really thorough hiring and onboarding process and a good job of clarifying the roles and expectations, we have these team members in place. And as a leader, one of the most beneficial things we can do to increase levels of engagement with those team members is to get to know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Every leader and manager, is seeking to build and manage a highly functioning team. And one of the most effective ways you can do that and reap the benefits of that fully engaged team is to work to understand who those team members really are. So there are, communication and behavioral basics we can study, and generational differences, understanding the differences in culture and background and life experiences, and getting to know their strengths and challenges. And I want to talk about some ways to do that in a structured approach, because that all sounds well and good. Yes, we'd love to know all that about our team members, but how do I do that? I can't just hang out with them all day, right?
Yeah.
First I want to talk about the benefits of doing that, because, as I said, it's something most of us want in terms of an outcome of that highly functioning, fully engaged team. But remembering the benefits it brings us kind of puts it more front and center as a priority.
Right.
So, yeah, because let's face it, it's a front-loaded process. We're doing a lot of work and investing a lot of time and resources early on to ultimately get the results that allow us to be able to be a little more hands-off and offer a little more autonomy to our team members. So some of the benefits. First of all, if we know who our team members are, we can tailor our coaching style to fit that team member. Mm-hmm. And so ideally, we're offering a more individualized approach to each team member. And that sounds maybe a little grandiose, or one of those things that would put up a flag and somebody says, I don't have time to get to know them on that type of level. But over time, it does kind of happen organically. If we start to do the work, we kind of start to get to know who they are. And if you think about people in our personal lives, if we know someone, we know the best way to approach them, or we know how they're going, to introduce something in a way that they're going to be more receptive to listening and that type of thing. So it's doable. It's definitely an investment of time, but it's definitely doable and more effective to be able to deliver that. And so we are now looking at how it is that we can provide them with opportunities to provide feedback and let them know they're doing something right, or maybe want to change things up a little bit. And then our third benefit of knowing your team members is to be able to tell sooner rather than later if they're a good fit, right? Are they happy? Are they a good fit? That type of thing. And that will help us to prevent resentments and toxicity and those kind of negative things from building up in the work environment. It can even help us when we're, dialing in at that level, paying attention to whether or not somebody's a good fit. And if they're happy, it can even help us to be alerted to any safety concerns. right?
Okay.
And so, that's, not something we want to think about or talk about in the workplace necessarily, but it is something, we wish we didn't have to think about or talk
Right.
about,
But
but
it's important though. I mean, like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to have safety is at the bottom of the pyramid, really. Like, it's your basic, necessities. So it's necessary evil.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then just the fourth and final benefit of that is it gives us the opportunity to coach and work with them to more successfully develop their careers. If we're taking the time to engage and get to know our team members, we are tuning into where they're strong, where they need support, and then we can help guide them in terms of their career development, which is good for them as an individual and of course good for the team and the organization as well. So those are the four benefits. And then there are many, many ways we can go about getting to know their team members.
Yeah, that's what I would love to hear. Like, what have you seen that's worked, that looks authentic versus like something that I know I've had leaders before that have been like, you can tell they're almost like reading off a cue card.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear like what you've seen has worked and what hasn't worked with some of the people you've coached and worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do talk about just some basic assessments. There are all sorts of assessment tools out there that are available to us in training in HR and leadership that will help us to get to know our team. So whether, you dive into something that's highly structured, like a Myers-Briggs, and I take a look at several different assessment tools and kind of outline the advantages and disadvantages and whether they're a fit for what you're trying to get to know about your team members. Like I said, whether it's Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or StrengthsFinder or DISC or Colby, they all have they have similarities, but they also bring different aspects of behavior, personality, work style to the forefront. So studying any assessment tool and fully vetting it and making sure, okay, this is maybe what I'm really looking to learn about these people, and maybe it isn't, and finding one that is. But that said, it doesn't have to be some type of formalized assessment. One of the tools I use probably most frequently with organizations is a 9-question communication styles quiz.
Okay.
It's all, paints you in one of 4 shapes that probably, aligns with most personality assessments and behavior assessments that we would take. But what it does, it's not particularly scientific, but what it does is it opens up a conversation, right? It gets people thinking, and it provides them with an opportunity to recognize their own traits, strengths, challenges, as well as those in the people they work with.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. So them being able to experience a little increased self-awareness, as well as getting to know their fellow team members, and then the leadership saying, oh, okay, I've got a team of all healthcare, all squares, because those are our caregivers, right? The people that are people, and so it just opens up a conversation to really kind of have an awareness of that, where many people have never been introduced to those type of instruments and that type of exploring self-awareness to that level. And I think in the work that we do in HR and training and development, we tend to think, well, that's been done 100 times. But I think I'm often surprised how much of the time people are like, I'd never thought about that way. I never thought about it that way, or that's something I recognized in myself, but I didn't know quite how to capture it, or what to do with it. Or I recognized that trait in a team member and I didn't know what to do with it. So you can go very highly structured and a more academic route with the assessments, or on a Saturday morning retail, before the retail store opens, you're taking a quiz to find out which Disney character you are.
Yeah.
It can be anywhere on that spectrum, as long as there's no substitute for the investment of time and attention. The assessment tools are great, provide us as leaders with a wealth of information, but there's no substitute for just investing the time.
That's great. I think that's so important because our audience, I would say probably 90% of them have done one of these assessment tools, but
Sure.
how many of them, if we were to do a poll to see like how many of them there was a course of action after they did one of these assessment tools, I bet you it would drop drastically, because I'm guilty of it, from doing a ton of these assessments and then it's like, what's next? The big piece is the attention afterwards and the conversation, the communication. I don't think that they need to say, this is, I'm X or I'm Y. It's more of, it starts a conversation. It's kind of a team building, self-awareness type tool to say, all right, this person likes to be communicated to this way. And just giving it some attention, which I think is the real big takeaway from this conversation. That's great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's an awareness, it initiates an awareness and begins a conversation. And I'm completely with you. I'm not, necessarily a proponent of labeling an individual a type, but it's a tool to kind of open that door. And as a leader, it's something you might have in your back pocket that, this person kind of lives in this area. And as you said, that's their go-to communication style or work style, or knowing how they'll be most receptive to new information is valuable from the leadership perspective.
It's great advice. So to add to that, we have a couple more questions before we wrap up today, but from your perspective, if you had to go back and give your, starting out in HR self years ago, what advice would you give yourself or to someone that is taking on a leadership role in HR?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. And, I think it kind of comes down to, at the end of the day, what can you do? What can you look back on that you did, or how you contributed in a way that improved not just your day, not just the organization's day, but the team that you work with, right? And so it might just be the behavior you model. It doesn't necessarily have to be some complex, series of events or activities or management technique. It could be how did you show up that day? And I think when we I know that's a little broad, a little vague, and maybe even a little out there, but I think when we approach it with everything we do with that in mind, the logistics and the strategies and the technical aspects, they just fall into place much more organically. And, it comes from a place of authenticity rather than feeling like we're checking boxes. To be a good leader, I need to do this, 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 and this kind of thing.
Yeah, That's great. Great advice. I'm sure our audience will run with that. That's really good. I like that. What I want to do too is, Renee, I would love to direct people to the show notes to take a look at you told me you have a guidebook on your website. So we'll link them up with that as well. And then we'll put in the show notes where they could find you, but where do you recommend people reach out to you?
Okay, well, thank you for asking that. And the best place to find me and my organization is our website, which is employeeengagementsolutions.com. And on there is a free downloadable guidebook, the 5 Key Strategies for Successful Employee Engagement. So please take advantage of that. And then also feel free to connect with me on social media, wherever you might be, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it, Instagram. Employee Engagement Solutions has its own Instagram, and love connecting with like-minded individuals and HR professionals and other organizations.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Renee. It was great talking to you. I learned a lot today, and hope to have you back again. Thanks for being on our show.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Welcome to HR Studio Podcast. Through bi-weekly interviews with HR executives, thought leaders, authors, speakers, and trend spotters from the world of HR and beyond, we invite you to listen, learn, and leverage. Welcome to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. HR Studio Podcast is brought to you by A.J. O'Connor Associates, a trusted human capital consulting partner to emerging, mid-market, and world-class organizations. To learn more, visit us at ajoconnor.com.